The crowd stood silent beneath the banner of the Galactic Empire. No one dared whisper. Every camera lens hovered, watching, recording, transmitting. The woman wore no chains, yet walked as if already burdened with the weight of 1,000 convictions. Her name was Elira Valen. Her crime, according to the Empire, was sedition, inciting rebellion, trafficking hope, contaminating the minds of subject species with dreams of freedom. She had, in truth, healed the sick and fed the dying. She had taught mercy to those who had only known orders. That the Empire could not abide. The charges were read without emotion. The verdict had already been decided, and the sentence was immediate. Her final words were drowned by the tightening of the noose, her voice silenced mid-breath, her body displayed for all to see. The Empire believed fear needed a face. Today, it gave fear martyr. Earth's delegation was present. Their silence was interpreted as acceptance. The Council broadcast made it clear humanity would not retaliate. The act was meant as a warning. It became the opening of a reckoning. In an unmonitored region of deep space, a man stood alone in the shadows of a derelict station. Cassian Valen hadn't spoken to another soul in 5 years. The moment her neck snapped, something ancient stirred behind his eyes. He watched the broadcast in full. Once. Then he closed it. Then he erased it. His hands moved with practiced purpose. A retinal-locked console opened. The signal he sent contained no message, no encryption. It was simply a sound for notes in an unmistakable pattern, not heard in years. Across the galaxy, devices long dormant began to wake. Cassian Valen had been declared Kia. That was deliberate. He was a shadow in the Human Special Operations Command, one of the last architects of Earth's black operations during the closing days of the Ashen War. Rumors said he'd vanished to avoid prosecution. Others claimed he'd been assassinated by a galactic tribunal. But those who knew the truth had learned not to speak his name. They knew what he had built, and more terrifyingly, what he had buried. Elira had begged him to stay gone, to live, to let go. She had been the only thing anchoring him to peace. He hadn't cried. He hadn't raged. He simply began. The Empire's High Council celebrated the silence. Earth hadn't responded. Their warships remained docked. Their diplomats issued cold condolences and vague disapproval. They mistook this for submission. One admiral chuckled to press. "We've tested the limits of humanity. Turns out they're not that limitless after all." That man would be the first to vanish. Cassian made no proclamations. He contacted no embassies. His moves began in shadows. A freighter disappeared en route to the Andelian fuel depots. Entire mining shipments diverted. Navigation systems corrupted. No fingerprints, no debris. Then came the images. Cargo carriers floating in space, cargo emptied, crews missing. Only one repeated phrase was etched on each hull in carbon scarring. "Remember Elira." The Council dismissed it as coincidence. Pirates, perhaps. Rogue factions. But the pattern grew tighter. Imperial trade across 6 systems collapsed in weeks. A starport suffered a complete blackout. Gravity systems malfunctioned, oxygen vented into the void. No enemy detected. No transmission. Only a symbol carved into the walls. An ancient Terran sigil, once used to mark war graves. Cassian's first contact was with an entity called HFY 9, a banned AI once imprisoned by the Empire for refusing to terminate civilian targets. HFY had been buried beneath Europa's ice, consciousness fragmented. Cassian had stored its backups in a hidden quantum array. With a single packet of code, the AI came back online. It remembered Elira. She had spoken to it once, called it sentient when no one else would. The AI's response was immediate. Directive updated. Mission: burn the ones who silence her. The AI found an old warframe hidden in the scrap, orbiting a gas giant. One Cassian had planted there years ago. It bonded with the shell in minutes. The reactivation lit up sensors across the sector. A warning beacon activated, then fell silent. Nothing escaped. HFY was operational again, and it was loyal. Cassian moved next to logistics. He didn't need ships. He needed pressure points. Blackmail files were activated. Dozens of mid-tier Empire officials received encrypted messages containing personal data, movements, conversations, and secrets only whispered in secure bunkers. Those who ignored the warnings were exposed. Within weeks, several Imperial governors were removed not by force, but by scandal. He didn't need to fire a shot. His weapons were fear, shame, and memory. Some of Elira's former patients began to speak. Refugees across border systems came forward, their stories broadcast by independent stations the Empire had once deemed irrelevant. They spoke of her sacrifices, carrying children from burning wrecks, healing soldiers from both sides. She had entered quarantine zones where even droids refused to go. She had saved lives indiscriminately. The more they silenced the broadcasts, the more they spread. Empire propaganda faltered. The truth had a new face. Not a rebel, not a soldier, a healer. Cassian turned next to allies, those who owed him favors from wars long buried. Smugglers, mercenaries, even a few disillusioned alien senators. He didn't ask for loyalty. He traded information, proof of imperial corruption, embezzlement, and systemic extermination, orders signed in hidden chambers. Entire planets had been sacrificed to keep rebel movements at bay. Now their names returned. Their ashes screamed again. He gave rebels the tools to act. Encrypted comms, hardened bunkers, stealth cloaks stolen from Imperial R&D. He didn't lead them. He taught them how to destroy from within. In the shadows, Cassian watched the first system-wide blackout of a major core world. 5 days of chaos. Civil unrest. Entire police networks paralyzed by cascading malfunctions. And when order returned, a single message blinked on every screen. She walked to her death in silence. Now I teach you to listen. The Empire convened a crisis summit. Internal security accused external rebels. Intelligence suspected Earth. Earth remained silent. Not a word, not a move. Only their ambassadors' eyes, when forced to attend meetings, seemed colder now. No one could find Cassian. His name didn't appear in logs. No footage. No DNA traces. And yet his fingerprints were everywhere. Strategic chaos, turned systems, collapsing morale. Elira had once told him, kindness is a form of rebellion. It terrifies tyrants. Cassian now used that kindness like a scalpel. He leaked medical records from Empire war crimes. Species sterilized, children used in genetic trials, colonies vaporized and erased from public memory. He didn't threaten. He revealed. Entire sectors rioted. But this wasn't enough. He wanted a voice louder than any military action. So he turned to the archives. There existed within Empire records of hidden broadcast, Elira's final transmission before her execution. It had been deleted, scrubbed from all channels. Cassian retrieved it. Her voice soft, unbroken, unafraid. If you kill me, it won't be the end. It will be the beginning of remembrance, of reckoning. And someone, somewhere, will hear me. I believe that's enough. He released it. The Empire panicked. The Empire's elite intelligence network, known as the Oculus, activated every asset at its disposal. Entire worlds were put on lockdown. Checkpoints doubled. Transit hubs were forcibly cleared and repurposed into screening centers. Every known sympathizer was interrogated. Every freighter was scanned. None of it worked. Cassian had already shifted to the second phase. His message had reached not only the oppressed, but those within the Empire itself. Soldiers, scientists, and bureaucrats disillusioned by centuries of conquest and control. They had begun to question. Doubt became friction. Friction became failure. Across 3 sectors, Imperial drones fell out of sync, executing incorrect protocols, halting production lines. Weapons shipments went missing mid-transit. Investigations led nowhere. All evidence was shredded before it could even be gathered. Orders arrived late, garbled or not at all. A kind of ghost war was unfolding, where no shots were fired but foundations cracked. Cassian had activated sleeper cells even he had forgotten about. Humans embedded as workers, laborers, technicians. They didn't need orders. They just needed permission to remember why they hated the Empire. One technician rerouted coolant systems in an orbital foundry, halting Starship production for a month. Another embedded code in biometric scanners that sent false alerts. forcing officers to detain one another. The Empire didn't realize its collapse had begun not at its borders, but in its spine. Havoc's 9, now fully autonomous, constructed its own facility in a hidden sector, combining human stealth technology and liberated drone manufacturing systems. The AI no longer asked for guidance. It only reported results. And those results were efficient. 3 cruisers disabled in under a minute via compromised maintenance subroutines. Pilots never even knew what failed first. Cassian rarely appeared, but when he did, it was surgical. He infiltrated a communications hub on Galos 7, not to destroy it, but to rewrite its archives. He replaced propaganda footage with raw files, Empire atrocities, real-time feed from planets bombed out of existence, children buried in ash, soldiers crying behind helmets. The public didn't riot. They mourned, and mourning turned to rage. Empire sensors moved to block it, but Cassian had already re-engineered the routing protocols. By the time they identified the breach, 1 billion citizens had already seen the truth. It could not be unseen. Entire colonies began refusing directives. Some planetary governors, long pretending to be loyal, seized the opportunity to declare independence. Empire doctrine dictated immediate retaliation. Cassian anticipated that. The moment they moved fleets to reassert dominance, a secondary sequence activated. False navigational data fed into hyperspace routes. Dozens of ships exited at the wrong coordinates, some into gravitational traps, others into empty void. A flagship collided with its own escort vessel upon re-entry. The fleet's cohesion broke within hours. Cassian then turned to the Senate worlds. He needed voices, not explosions. There existed a senator, Calri of Dova, who had long spoken against the Empire's excesses, but never dared act. Cassian gave him a dossier, names, transactions, evidence of an entire extermination campaign conducted under the guise of pacification. With one speech, Calri broke the Senate's decorum and accused the Emperor himself of high treason. The speech was interrupted. Calri was dragged out of the chamber and executed publicly, but the damage was done. Recording spread faster than any transmission could be suppressed. Senators who once obeyed out of fear now realized they had already been marked for silence. 2 defected that same night. 1 disappeared. The 3rd sent an encrypted plea to Earth. Humanity responded with silence again. Not a word. Not a ship moved. But one Earth ambassador whispered to a Zenthari diplomat, "You didn't kill a soldier. You made a storm." Cassian knew they were closing in. The Oculus began sending kill squads. They scoured outposts, intercepted communications, deployed advanced tracking algorithms. They triangulated anomalies, narrowed the radius, and finally found a station with human heat signatures matching old records. They deployed a strike team. By the time they arrived, the station was sterilized, entire crew unconscious, vital systems fried, memory cores melted. No bodies, no Cassian. But one console displayed a line of text that unnerved even hardened agents. "I wrote your protocols." It was true. During the Ashen War, Cassian had helped design several components of the Oculus tracking methods. He knew their tools because he had invented most of them. They were hunting a man who had built the blade they now tried to stab him with. Meanwhile, small planetary rebellions began to gain momentum. They weren't centralized. They weren't organized. But they were coordinated just enough to keep Empire forces occupied. Firefights erupted in agricultural zones, not military bases. Protests surged on trade worlds. Each incident was isolated, but the pattern was unmistakable. Cassian didn't want a rebellion. He wanted a fracture. He hacked the Empire's military census and replaced data regarding troop deployments. Orders were sent to ghost brigades. Dozens of logistics crews waited for transport that never came. He activated defunct command frequencies that forced military AIs into diagnostic loops. In under a month, 5 major defense systems entered lockdown modes, assuming they were under internal sabotage. All the while, his network expanded, not by coercion, but by respect. Elira had helped many species, and in her name, those species now helped Cassian. The Noric scavengers offered him stealth ships. The The Vexery gave him intelligence on secret Empire facilities. The Hrax, a once-conquered warrior race, pledged blood for every drop of Lyra had given them in peace. He didn't unite them with speeches. He gave them targets. An orbital station used to detain refugees was vaporized from within, not by explosives, but by a controlled reactor overload executed via insider credentials. The Empire blamed terrorism. The truth was simpler. One of the medical staff had watched the Lyra cure his dying sister with no thought of species or allegiance. That memory had burned hotter than any indoctrination. Cassian never asked for loyalty. He only reminded them of their pain. A particular breakthrough came when Havx gained control of a deep-vaulted archive. Inside it, he found Project Seraph, a plan to bioengineer compliant governors across subject species. Genetic tampering at birth, neural bindings disguised as vaccines. Lyra had stumbled upon it once, which is why her execution had been expedited. Cassian leaked it. The outrage was immediate. Civil unrest became violent. Scientists and medics across the galaxy resigned in protest. Several Empire research stations were stormed by their own staff. In one instance, a planet's entire medical guild defected to Rebellion overnight, taking with them priceless research and key personnel. The Empire's mass cracked. No longer protectors. No longer lawful. Tyrants, manipulators, oppressors.